What's up, my podcast listeners? This is your host, Rafał Majewski, and it's been a while since I posted a new video, vlog, podcast, whatever you want to call it, because I've been off for a week, and I still have like 2 more days off from work and the hustle and all that, and it got me thinking on my trip of what I should, come back to, and I have like a lot of ideas and things that I want to, bring up in this podcast episode, and one of them is actually like taking time off of training. So there is this whole thing called overtraining, and I have experienced that many times, and I physically had to learn the hard way to get through it, and a lot of it was injury, pulling things, getting sore in areas where you're not supposed to, and it's kind of like our body's natural way of like, telling us to slow down. And this only happens when you get to like a certain point of training, like training frequency. And I'm trying to think the last time where I kind of felt overtrained, and it was probably at least maybe 5 months ago, and literally was like, and I think a lot of people have this experience too, where when in the clinic setting especially, is like when people come into the clinic and they're like, oh, I've like pulled my back. And then, we ask, like, well, what happened? And they're like, I bent over to grab my kid and my entire back went out. And, that's not overtraining, but it kind of is. And let me explain why. So the definition of overtraining is like, say you're training like 7 days a week, you haven't taken a break, every workout you're literally trying to like increase your weights, try to run a little bit further or faster, or go longer on your bike because it's summer and it's nice out, or whatever it is, and you're not actually giving your body enough time to actually recover. And a lot of those people, like those gym goers or even trainers that literally train every single day, and it's just part of their life, and you realize that you go an entire year of training nonstop, and something will go that will stop you. And for me, it's like I usually like pull something in my back, my shoulder starts hurting for random reasons, or I get really, really, really tired and feel like absolute shit. So now, and then on top of that, if someone is, training for long periods of time and they have a super stressful job, like double whammy, like you're not gonna last. So I would say this last 2 years, I've been paying attention to my volume personally, like very closely, and I've kind of found a sweet spot for at least myself. And this doesn't mean that it works for everybody, but honestly, I used to do the whole like, I'm gonna get 4 to 5 strength workouts a week that are like a full hour. I'm gonna do like some sprint intervals on my off days. I'm gonna do some mobility training and what have not, or what have you, whatever that saying is. But and I would always get to a point where I'm constantly pushing myself, and then something would go, and it started happening pretty often, like probably at least 4 times a year. And I'm like, okay, I don't like this. And I'm like, okay, I'm kind of used to the whole idea of constantly training every single day, and how can I implement that routine in my life where I don't get injured. So I had created this new routine ever since COVID happened, where, especially in the beginning when COVID kind of shut everything down, I was in a position where I was working like non-fucking stop to ensure that my business would survive, like my brick and mortar business of the gym and the clinic. So I was spending a lot of time on my computer, changing everything online, and just going to the facility every single day, and like it was like nonstop. And I was like, okay, well, I don't have full hours. So I started doing like 20 to 30-minute workouts. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to like switch to like kettlebell stuff, because like if I can't do it at work, like it'll come home or like before work starts, let's get a quick like kettlebell workout in. And sometimes like those kettlebell workouts, and honestly today, this is what I'm going to do, is like, okay, I'm pressed for time. I'm going to do a 10-minute warm up that includes my soft tissue, whatever it is. And I'm just going to do 100 swings. And whatever I need to do to get to 100 swings is what I'm going to do. So I'll like grab my 24 kilo kettlebell, do 10 swings, rest a little bit, 10 swings, rest a little bit, repeat that 10 times, boom, done. Right? And that worked really well for me. And I started doing that, and I was like, you know what, I feel pretty good. Like, you know, sometimes when you get those workouts in and you're like, okay, full hour, I have to do all this stuff. And by the end of it, you're actually more tired than you were going in, and you're like, fuck. And then, you know, things build up over time and you actually don't feel that great. And when I started doing these shorter workouts, I kind of found a rhythm to it. And I was like, okay, like I feel pretty good doing, you know, 4 to 5 kettlebell workouts a week, doing my Kinstretch, that's like 40 to 45 minutes. And it was pretty good. And I was like, okay, well, now that I kind of have this as a habit and routine, I can do other things during the day that can, you know, keep me active and things like that. And a thing I started doing is, even during like the winter months, I really enjoyed like first thing in the morning taking my dog out for like, a walk, without my phone and everything like that, just to kind of clear my head, get some ideas for projects, kind of like work out problems that I may be facing in my business, how I can, you know, contribute differently in relationships or whatever it is, you know, like a lot of good thoughts and ideas and problem solving, because this day and age we have like no time to be with our own thoughts and like think about stuff. And honestly, I think that's one of the biggest issues we face right now, is because we don't have time. Like, ask yourself, when was the last time you had like 1 minute where you're not looking at your phone, you don't have something playing in front of you, when you're not stimulated whatsoever, and you're just like in your head thinking about stuff? Like, probably hasn't happened in a very, very, very long time. So, yeah, so I ended up getting into a habit of like walking like 3 kilometers every single day with my dog. And I was like, oh, that's, you know, pretty good. Like getting like a 30-minute walk with my dog every single day. And then the other nice thing was like I have a spin bike at home, and, you know, if I need to throw in like an extra 20 minutes on the spin bike, I can do intervals, I can do a recovery thing, and that's kind of been my routine. So like literally my week consists of like 4 20 to 30 minute workouts with a kettlebell, or like literally like one of my days is, because like, you know, I like deadlifting ever since I posted maybe again 5 months ago, just to see, because I haven't deadlifted forever. Maybe video, I had a video I posted 5 months ago of the trap bar deadlift, and I did 285 I think for a couple reps, and I was like, oh, like, you know, I haven't deadlifted in 2 years. That's a pretty good strength to, you know, hold on to, and all I've been doing is like 20 to 30 minute workouts and walking. So I was like, you know what, it would be kind of cool to get back into deadlifting. And the last 12 weeks, I literally have 1 day a week where I just do the trap bar deadlift. I literally do like 6 sets of 2 or 3 reps, and I, you know, have my percentages for it and do my warm up, and it's like a 20-minute workout, and that's it. And then I do 2 Kinstretch workouts for myself, and then that's it. Like that has been working for me. So with overtraining, when I used to do that a lot, my body would physically tell me to stop. And things like pulling my back would happen, and it's like my body's way of telling me, like, you need to slow down. And if you don't slow down, I'm going to physically force you to slow down. And that is like literally the worst feeling, because it's like you have this small little like tweak, and you're like, the rest of my body feels good, but I physically can't do what I used to do because of this stupid little thing. And, you know, when it comes to just patients coming in, like I was mentioning earlier about, you know, oh, I reached down to go grab something and, you know, I pulled my back. And, you know, it isn't a case kind of like overtraining, but it's just that the stress that their body's able to take is very low. That threshold's really, really, really low. So any repetitive motion bending over, that threshold's lower, so they go do that and their body gives out and they're like, F you. So kind of similar to overtraining, right? You reach your threshold of how much volume of training and stress you can take, and your body tells you to, like, well, I'm going to tell you to stop. So overtraining is something that, you know, I haven't spoke about in a long time, but it's there. So anytime there are signs of overtraining, which is like, if you find yourself getting like tired a lot more, like in the middle of the day, you're just like, I'm not usually tired at this time, or like, you know, you wake up and by 10 a.m. you're like, fuck, I could go to sleep right now. And like sometimes this has happened to me where, you know, I've pushed myself to the limit in the gym nonstop, high stress environment at work, whatever it is, and then, you know, you get home early one day and you're like, you know, I'm just gonna lie down, just chill, and then you end up just falling asleep out of nowhere, and you're like, wow, my body really needs this. And that's another thing. It's like, say on the weekend you have the rare opportunity to like just chill and do nothing, and you find yourself falling asleep in the middle of the day, and you're like, I need this. My body's just tired. You can also see a change in hunger. So when I get to the verge of overtraining, I'm hungry all the fucking time. I'm like, okay, I need to slow down. My body is not happy with this. And then even like in your workouts, your strength declines, right? So one of the reasons why I added my trap bar deadlift is like, you know, say I'm doing 70% of my max. I've always done 6 sets of fucking 4 reps, whatever it is. And, you know, I start, you know, my first set, I'm like, oh man, this feels really heavy, where, you know, 2 weeks ago, this was nothing. So like even those little things of like you feeling you can't push yourself, or like, you know, say you're doing a spin class and, you know, you're on your Peloton and you do the same workout every week, and you find yourself at one point feeling like, oh, this workout really kicked my ass for some reason. Like that's another sign of overtraining. Or say you're doing your run, you're doing the same, I don't know, 5-kilometer loop around your neighborhood, and you're like, man, that like kicked my ass and I was like 6 minutes slower than I usually am. Like another sign of overtraining. Like these are the things you need to look at. And the nice thing is like, I physically will plan my time off of the gym, and sometimes that's what you need, right? Because if you really think about it, like every time you work out, you're placing a stress on your body, and you're hoping that, you know, your sleep is good, your nutrition is good, you're able to take on all the stresses of life and recover from it, and on top of that, recover from a workout in order to get stronger and adapt. And sometimes we just can't recover as fast, and you accumulate all this stress over time, and then your body's like, no. So sometimes planned breaks is a good thing. Like, you know, guaranteed when I get back into the gym this week and like actually start pushing, like going back to my deadlift. Like I remember last week when I finished my last deadlift workout, like I was at my heaviest. I think I was at probably like 85% of my max, and like by that last set I was like, wow, I'm fucking tired and done. Like that's enough. Yeah, like getting to that point and then having this week off, going back into the gym this week, it's probably going to be freaking killer. Like I'll have a lot of stored energy that I can just burn off, and you know, I've been eating more than I usually am, and that's going to help me kind of push into my next set of workouts, which I'm super excited about. But a lot of people who don't plan breaks when they train nonstop, you're going to be forced, right? So you're better off, like, you know, looking at your year. And again, this one of the things that I've learned in my career is like plan your entire year out, like not only your training but also like other aspects of your life. And I always do this with my employees, my contractors, whoever it is, to learn to, you know, crush goals throughout the year. So I kind of have these like 5 categories, and I'm going to be all over this podcast episode, by the way, because I have like a lot of ideas. So anyway, every October I plan my entire year like coming up, and I have these 5 categories. One, it's physical goals, personal goals, professional goals, financial goals, and spiritual goals. And then within those 5, I'll have like 3 main ones that I want to hit for the year. And in there, as I plan out the year, like throughout the year, I'll have like about 2 weeks where I'll take time off of training completely. And like that can be as like, okay, my only activity and exercise is like walking the dog, foam rolling, doing like my daily cars in the morning, whatever it is, and that's all I need. And then when I go back to the gym and I'm like lifting heavy weights, boom, amazing. And again, like people getting worried about like, oh, I'm gonna lose all my, you know, gains, I'm gonna like gain a lot of weight and everything. It's like, it's 1 week out of the entire year of you being consistent. Like at no time ever on the history of this planet, someone exercising for a week made them leaner and made them lose a bunch of weight. Like that never happens. So it won't happen in the reverse, where if you don't train for a week and you're consistent all year round, you're not going to gain like 10 pounds and you're not going to lose all your strength. Like that's physically impossible. If you did that for a month, yeah, hell yeah, you're going to lose quite a bit of strength and gain weight if you're inactive. But a week is not going to do any damage. So that being said, like something to think about when it comes to your training, like plan breaks. And if you're planning an entire year, like, you know, if you know that in the summer you're going to go away for camping or whatever it is, or you're going to go visit a city, and, you know, now that travel's going to be coming back, like you can plan those things, right? Like for me, the next like time off of training is going to be when I go to Disneyland in November. But again, like my activity is going to be walking all the fucking time, and it might not sound like a lot, but you know, last time when I went to Disney, like we were there from open till close. So literally either at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. until fucking midnight, walking nonstop. And you know, I think we averaged about 10 kilometers every single day walking. Like that's quite a bit. And I wouldn't have the time or energy to get any other training in. So that's kind of like my time off from training. And when I came back, same thing. I was like, oh, fuck yeah, I feel good. So overtraining, one thing. The other thing I wanted to bring up is like people that are not training consistently every single day of the week, and they're like, you know, the 2 to 3 times a week of weight training, whatever it is, and then you take time off. Again, it's not going to kill you to take that time off, but you kind of want to stay active. Like you don't want to just, you know, sit around and drink and eat nonstop. You want to find something active. So if you're on a trip somewhere, like, I don't know, you go to fucking Hawaii, like go for a hike, like go do something, go swimming, go whatever, just stay active. Try not to, you know, fall into that whole idea of like, oh, I'm just gonna sit my ass on the beach and drink nonstop. Like move a little bit, move. Like even if it's like you're at a resort in Mexico and you wake up early for some reason because you're still on freaking your time to wake up for work, like walk around the resort a couple times, go grab a cup of coffee, and then boom, whenever it's time to drink, start drinking, whatever, who cares? But you know, it takes time to like train on vacation. It took me a long time to kind of get there, but I think it's like as my, I guess, career kind of fell in line a little bit easier for myself and I was in full control of my schedule, when it came to vacation time, I was like, yeah, I should get a workout in or 2. But again, it took a long time and everyone's a little bit different, but that's a whole nother story. The other topic I wanted to get into is, and I've brought this up once, I believe, on my show where I talked about like the power of Kinstretch. And, you know, ever since I got my functional range assessment certification, I've been having a lot of people reach out to me online, in person, to get that done and start doing Kinstretch, because the last, I guess, year, I've been posting a lot about, true mobility training, true flexibility, and learning what that actually means and how to maintain long-lasting joint health and long-lasting flexibility. And I think it was back in October when I did my first what is Kinstretch video, and maybe I'll link that in the show notes if you wanted to watch it. So the big thing that I've been seeing is that people want to move and feel better more than anything right now. Before, I was always getting a lot of people where they're like, oh, I just want to lose weight, and I just want to start training and lifting heavy and whatever it is, and that's all great and good, but sometimes you need to focus and prioritize your mobility and joint health. And I think more than ever right now, people are just broken. People are sore, people are stiff from sitting all day, especially since COVID started with everyone working from home. People don't have, proper setups for their desks. People are working out of their beds for 3 hours until moving onto the couch because they don't even have an office space or whatever it was, or maybe they did have an office space before, but then they had kids and a dog and fucking an iguana in the corner or whatever it is, a fish tank, and kind of just took over your space, and you're literally kind of all over the place when it comes to for work. But I think the big thing now that I see in this industry is people want their joints to feel better, because they have figured out that if I can't move my shoulder like this without pain, why am I going to the gym and doing an upper body workout and things hurting and I have to stop and I can only do lower body? It's not the best. So when people go through the FRA, which is an abbreviation for the functional range assessment with me, people start asking a lot of questions okay, with all this information, what do you do with it? How does a Kinstretch workout and work and differ from yoga and any other stretching routine? And really, I look at it as the gold standard. Everything that the FRC, FRS, Kinstretch, whatever certification you want to bring up within that company, the creator, Dr. Andrew Spina, has literally went through all the literature and research on rehab, joint health, recovery, post-op, whatever it is, and organized it into a system better than anyone else. And at its core, when you look at what a muscle cell does in your body, essentially, in a Kinstretch setting, FRC setting, FR setting, whatever it is, you want to influence your tissue to become more resilient. And how you do that is by sending external inputs into the cellular level. So me doing a pails and rails contraction or a hover or an isometric contraction or whatever thing that I decide to do in my Kinstretch class, for example, communicates at a cellular level. So I send an isometric contraction through my hip because I need more hip external rotation. I send this signal to the cells responsible for stuff in the hip, and they get that information. And I've built an opportunity for myself to lay down more resilient tissue. And this is how I kind of explain it to anyone new to Kinstretch, that every day we have a new set of muscle cells waiting for information from you. So we have a couple options. We can wake up, have that opportunity, decide to go sit in our car for an hour, drive to our office, sit down for 8 hours, and then go back into our car and fight off traffic for another hour and sit down, and then go to our dinner table, sit for an hour, and then go onto the couch and sit for a couple hours watching whatever show, you know, low-key, which is amazing, by the way, and then go back to sleep. So that entire day, we've been influencing at a cellular level that, hey, all you need to do is be really efficient at keeping me in a seated position. And your muscle cells go, okay, let's lay down some tissue and kind of neurological and mechanical tightness to keep you there. Or I can get into a 90-90 position with my hips, influence at a cellular level to stay loose and more limber, whatever term you want to use, and then challenge that new acquired range by doing active range liftoffs, hovers, any other implement you can think of from that whole FRS system. And that's how you literally will keep new acquired range. Like, you have an opportunity every single day to influence your tissue quality, right? So, you know, that lame saying, if you don't use it, you lose it, holds very, very, very true. And like, everybody understands that. Yeah, when I don't exercise and move, everything feels stiff and tight. It's like, yeah, like when I go to a conference for 3 days and I sit in a conference hall and then go on an airplane and come back home, like, holy fuck, my hips and low back are super tight and I like just need to foam roll for like 2 hours or get a massage. Like, yeah, that makes sense, right? So rather than doing that, I can do Kinstretch for 45 minutes, and that's 45 minutes of influence at a very high rate, where I can, you know, gain more mobility and keep it. And kind of the difference too, when people ask, well, what's the difference with yoga? Yoga, you get flexible in a linear path. So say I am doing Warrior 2 and I do Warrior 2 the same every single class, I get really efficient at Warrior 2. But say with my arms being out and I want to rotate this way, I'm not allowed to do that because that's not how a Warrior 2 looks like. So Kinstretch will make you mobile and strong in multiple different planes of motion. Like, I want more hip external rotation, but I can achieve that in like 100 different ways depending on how I position my body, right? And then on top of that, getting into a stretch position for hip external rotation, I can add an active component. A lot of yoga is very passive if you're holding a pose for X amount of time and then you move on. I'm not bashing yoga, it's a different training mechanism, but when it comes to protecting you from injury, Kinstretch and its principles is your best bet. So an example is, say I had a baseball pitcher and they tore their rotator cuff in a shoulder abducted position with external rotation. It's in my best interest to get that athlete, patient, in the position that they got injured in and make them as strong as fucking possible in there. So, you know, say they tore the rotator cuff and their, you know, active range is like far back there. Because when you see baseball pitchers, like, they can externally rotate their shoulder like no tomorrow. So say their range is here. Now I've got to get them back to where they were. So now I need to get them stronger in all these positions until they get back to this position here where they can actually throw. So that's one example. Another example is, say you have, and I use this all the time explaining Kinstretch, say you have someone that's a soccer player and they're on the field, but it rained the night before and game's first thing in the morning and the grass is super wet and you're playing the game and you go to cut and your whole foot slides on the grass because it's super wet and you pull a groin. But how do I prevent something like that? Say I get someone into a split-like position laterally, because that's how they pull their groin, as far as possible, and train them in that position with pails and rails, active range liftoffs, hovers, whatever it is. So now when the next time they go into that environment where they slide onto the grass, but I've, put them in that position before and I've trained in those ranges, most likely they're not going to pull anything. They might get like a little twinge, but they're going to be like, oh, I'm good to go, right? So essentially what we're doing is creating more of a threshold in your tissues at their end ranges, because that's where an injury happens, right? Like, you don't ever injure your neck doing this. It's going to be here at one point and then like going too far, right? So if you look at a definition of what an injury is when enough of an external force enters the tissue and the tissue can't handle that external force and then something breaks, right? So, me doing this to my arm won't break the bones in my forearm, because the force, like, I'm used to that amount of force. But say you drop a fucking boulder on my thing, like, maybe it won't break, but it might fracture it or, puncture my skin, whatever it is, right? But same thing, like, if I wanted to, say if I was a NFL lineman or D-end, and one of the things that can happen on the outside of the play is like grabbing another player to bring him down, and the motion is this. So like from an FRS perspective, I should take this football player in a position where they would get into this, and if they have a freaking running back going this way and I don't want my entire arm to like explode off, I could literally get into a wall or like put a ball against a pillar and hold and isometrically contract in all these different positions as hard as possible to ensure that when that load happens, that force as I'm coming through, my arm's okay, right? So like you're literally bulletproofing your body for any kind of external load that may happen. And this is the beauty of Kinstretch, is that there's so many variable movements that our body does, and because we're all one unit, we can play along with that anatomy and become more resilient. So that's kind of a long-winded answer of like what I explain to people, because when I do a elevator pitch, it's like it's stretching on steroids, but really what it is, it's like you're bulletproofing your body for anything. And I think now a lot of people want to feel better rather than like, I want to get as strong as possible and lose weight, right? Like those are the byproducts of training properly, right? But I think now a lot of people just want to move and feel better from what I've been seeing, what I've been hearing. So I think I'm going to end it there, because I have a lot that I can talk about, and we're already at 33 minutes, and I think people, toleration for long videos is kind of around this point in time. But thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Hit the show notes, add me on Facebook, add me on Instagram, and give me a 5-star review on my podcast. If you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, SoundCloud, whatever it is, make sure you leave a review. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. You guys have been listening again, so thank you. So hit the show notes and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you get a notification anytime I upload something new. And thank you so much, you guys. This is amazing that this podcast has been going on this long. I think I'm coming up to my 5-year anniversary for this podcast, which is super cool. You guys are amazing. Thank you for the support. Until next time.